Hello and welcome to my retro watches. Now I'm afraid this video is not going to be about watches. It's going to be about me talking about my health, about an update on where I am now, and to spread more awareness about prostate cancer. Now a lot of you have been around the channel long enough and you know what I've been through this year, but more recently I've had quite a few new subscribers, so I want to reach out, make as much awareness and as much noise as possible, because if you're a man and you're watching this video and you're age 45 or mainly 50 and upwards, then you could be suffering with this and not even know it. But before I get into the details of all of that, if you looked at my community post recently, I was talking about my next restoration video and should it be a Zenith or should it be the Seiko Willard? Both really good watches. The Seiko is an absolute icon, and of course I love Seikos. So I did a poll across all the social media for the Facebook groups, my own Facebook, Instagram, and of course on YouTube. And lo and behold, the Seiko came out. So I've got the Seiko right here. There we go. This is the only time we're going to see a watch today, I'm afraid. This is going to be on the channel next, hopefully. I'm going to start recording it in the next couple of days. It's got a fantastic story. It's sort of almost connected to what I'm going to talk about. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Hopefully I don't have any too many problems, or I've got to wait for some parts because that might delay the video, but stay tuned for that. It's coming really soon. Right then, before I get into how I am now and what I've gone through over the last few months, I thought I'd give the whole story, certainly for the new viewers and for anybody who might stumble across this video looking for information on prostate cancer. So my story is, well, this was my 50th year. I turned 50 in August, and I kind of had a bit of an epiphany thinking, well, I'm turning 50, I better start looking after my health a little bit more and listening to my body, things like that. And it would have been possibly last year, maybe in the lockdown. I remember being at work and I was working on a bench. We had the radio on and there was a guy or a couple of guys talking about prostate cancer, and particularly how it affects so many men. It actually turns out that it's the most common cancer in men. It kills a lot of us as well, chaps, and but catch it early. There's lots of things you can do, hopefully, to get a cure as well. So in some respects you do hear this bandied around that if there's one cancer to have, it's prostate cancer. I'm not sure I entirely agree. I would prefer not to have any cancers, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, I was listening to these guys and they were telling the story about or making awareness about prostate cancer, and how you could test for it through a blood test called a PSA test. Now, a PSA test alone, it's this prostate serum antigen. I guess it's a hormone or something in your bloodstream that your prostate gland secretes. Now, this test is kind of crude. They don't use it to test for prostate cancer or for screen. Certainly in the UK, there is no screening. This is a very silent disease in many respects. But it's an indication that there may be something wrong with your prostate should you have an elevated number. So anyway, I listened to these guys on the radio. It kind of went in, but I think when I had the epiphany at the beginning of this year, thinking I'm turning 50, I better do something about my health. I ended up in front of the doctors for something completely unrelated. I had been complaining of hernia pain. I've already had a hernia, inguinal hernia before, and I went to the doctors about that. And while I was there, I said, I need a blood test to test my cholesterol. And I'd also like to have a blood test for this PSA test for the prostate. And I was quizzed at the time by my GP why I would want that test and had I got any symptoms. And I said, well, what are the symptoms? I don't know anything about symptoms. But I just want to test. I've heard this thing on the radio and you know, I want to look after myself. So with some reluctance, they agreed to do it. They also did the dreaded finger up the backside and had a feel around. And yes, it's not very nice. I think a lot of you may have had that done, but there's also going to be quite a few of you who have not had it done. And, you know, that area is not a place that men like anything put into. But listen, it's over in seconds. For me, they felt it. They said, doesn't it feel, well, it feels fine, should I say. but we'll do the blood test. So they did the blood test, and 2 or 3 days later, I got a phone call from the GP saying that my PSA level, was at 7.1. I had no idea what that meant, and realised very quickly that, well, that meant there's something wrong. The GP sort of played it off, going, "Oh, well, we'll send you to hospital. It could be nothing. It could be a whole manner of things, but we have to do the right thing and get it checked out." For me personally, I've got a lot of anxiety, or I can, and that, basically my world fell apart just from that one thing. What was wrong with me? Was this the end of the world? And I think a lot of people probably go through that emotion. So anyway, I went to hospital. I don't know, a week, 2 weeks later, had the same rectal examination. This time was a lot more thorough, should we say, and the verdict was, yes, we can feel something. I asked this particular consultant, well, does that mean it's cancer? And he almost laughed at me and says, it could be anything. We'll have to send you for an MRI and a biopsy. So, okay, fine. But secretly, I wasn't okay and I wasn't fine. My mental state was starting to crumble. I've got a young daughter. She's only 10 years old. I couldn't help but think of her and my family and everything, really. It's quite profound. Anyway, I went for an MRI scan. That was fairly straightforward. I then took a cancellation for a biopsy, and the biopsy is like medieval torture to me. It wasn't very, very pleasant. They took 25 samples from my prostate, 13 from one side and 12 from another, of which 6 contained cancerous cells, 5 on one side and 1 on the other side. And obviously I was presented with this through seeing my consultant, who immediately said when I walked through the door, this is what we're going to do to treat your cancer. So yes, that was a great big shock. And they gave me options. So first of all, they grade prostate cancer. So you have what is called the Gleason scale, and that is basically how aggressive the cancer cells are. And it's scored in a strange way. So I had 3 plus 4, which meant, well, 3 plus 4 equals 7. So I was Gleason 7. I believe Gleason 6, so a 3 plus 3 is kind of like one of the lowest or the least aggressive. And then you could have Gleason 9 or 10, which is the most aggressive cancer. So I didn't have the worst, but I didn't have the least either, but it was only one step up, which was encouraging. I then had what was called a T3A diagnosis, and I don't want to go into that too much, but basically that is just where the cancer is. So for me, that my cancer or my tumour was on the edge of my prostate, about to escape, should we say. So that was quite terrifying as well, to be told that. But I was confronted with 2 options. One was surgery and the second was radiotherapy and hormone therapy. Both, to my relief, would result hopefully in a cure, or curative is the word that the consultant used. They sent me packing for 3 or 4 weeks to think about it. I mean, it's literally on the day I said, I want surgery. And he said, no, you need to go home. You need to think about it, because both surgery and radiotherapy have got some, well, not vicious side effects, but they've got some side effects that you'll need to deal with mentally and physically, certainly in your recovery. So go and do your homework and come back and tell us what you want to do. So I didn't really need to do my homework. I'd done enough already. I'd done enough reading. I wanted surgery. I felt that surgery was the quickest way to a cure, really, and the quickest way back to normal. No disrespect to the chaps out there who've had radio and hormone therapy, but that can be a lot prolonged. It can go over for years almost. And I didn't feel like I could probably cope with knowing that I had, cancer inside me. So I took the surgical route, which was basically to remove my entire prostate through a robotic surgery. So they use a machine called the Da Vinci machine. It looks like a great big sort of spider thing. They put 6 holes in you, tilt you up so you head first, and remove your prostate. So I had that surgery done on the 4th of August. Today is the 4th of December, so I am 4 months, and yes, a lot's happened in 4 months, but a lot of good things have happened in 4 months. So the surgery went really well, and I was sent home with, well, literally, I could have gone home almost the next day. It was major surgery, but because they use keyhole with this robot, the wounds aren't too big. Ironically, I mentioned I went to the doctor about a hernia. Well, it turned out I had a femoral hernia, which is something else. And on the day, unbeknownst to me, I arrived at the hospital to have my prostatectomy and was told, if you want, we'll also do your hernia operation, and which required a different surgeon or a different set of surgeons. So I had 2 operations for the price of one on the day. Anyway, they sent me home to recover. I had a catheter, which was particularly unpleasant for me. I had to have a catheter for 11 days because I'm presuming you know where the prostate is, but if you don't, the prostate sits below your bladder and it sort of holds your bladder up. Your prostate makes your semen, and that's all it does. And it sort of acts as almost as a sort of separate valve for your urinary tract. So it does help you, control your urination and keep it in, basically. I don't know what the right word is for that, your plumbing. So yes, they get your prostate, they cut it out completely, they pull the urethra, the pipe, and sew it back onto your bladder. So as a result, you've got to have a catheter while the wounds heal and set and so on and so forth. So that was particularly unpleasant, but it's just something you have to have done. It's just part of trying to get better, isn't it? So had that was removed 11 days later, and then the first of the sort of longish term side effects took hold, which is urinary incontinence. So you can have this in various degrees. Some guys are very lucky and they get continent almost straight away. I wasn't one of those. I leaked quite a lot for many, many weeks. I turned 50 3 weeks after my operation. I had a 50th birthday party. I was drinking beer and wine, and to all intents and purposes, there wasn't a lot wrong with me. But I couldn't really hold it all in very well, so that wasn't embarrassing because obviously everybody knew what the situation was. A lot of pelvic floor exercises, and of course just a lot of time. Time passes. Here we are 4 months later. Yes, I still leak, quite openly tell you that, but not that much. Not to the extent of having to worry about it at all anymore. And I believe that maybe in another 3 or 4 months, I hopefully won't leak at all, and that part of the side effect will be done. The other side effect is a bit more personal. It's again to do with your manhood, and it's basically, can you rise to the occasion? Personally, I can't. That is the reality of having your prostate removed. You have a nerve bundle on each side of the prostate, and that controls your up and down when you've got the desire. And I had to sacrifice one side of my nerves in order to get an all clear. So I sacrificed my nerves to have a clearer margin around the prostate. I've kept one nerve bank, and I take treatment. I've got some pills and a different apparatus to try and keep it all healthy, and hopefully maybe in a year it may return. So that's the reality, chaps. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. It's not the nicest of diseases to have. The side effects for me, well, some of it's psychological as well, of course, because we like to have everything working, don't we? And I'm only 50 years old, so it's still a bit of a shock. I'm statistically young to have this disease. But that's just a figurative of speech, really. You could be any age, of course. It's just that more older men, so the guys in the 60s and 70s particularly, may be more susceptible to prostate cancer. So quickly, 6 weeks after the operation, I go back to the consultant. By that point, they have the pathology on the organ that they removed. And for me, best news possible. They believe that the cancer was contained within the prostate, and therefore you could not safely say, but you could, hope that I'm now cancer-free. So I've taken that as I am cancer-free. So I'm delighted really to say that after 4 months, well, I've been cancer-free for 4 months. I mean, that is absolutely fantastic. What more could you ask for? I have to have PSA tests, so blood tests, continuously for the rest of my life. I have to have them every 3 months at the moment, and my first one is coming up now. I could literally book it this week. I'm really nervous about that, let's face it. There's no reason to suggest I will get a PSA reading. And of course, that's all they're doing. They're just seeing if your PSA is going to rise. And if it rises, then it needs investigating, because potentially there's still cancer cells multiplying inside me. So hopefully that's not going to happen. And I guess as much as it's quite scary to think that you're going to have to go through this every 3 months and have that thought process again in your head, you can flip it over to a positive. And that's what I've been trying to do all the way through this. And the positive is, well, look, so far I'm good, and there's no reasons to suggest I'm not going to be good. So therefore, unless they tell me something, everything's going to be okay. And equally, if something happens, but it happens early, doesn't it? It's caught early, and there's so much more treatment available. So that's where I am. I'm 4 months on. I'm very positive. I've been back to work for months. Life is particularly normal. I thought it was going to change me profoundly. I'd have some strange sort of epiphany of I don't know, just profound change in my life because, have I cheated death or something like that? But no, I just feel a lot less stressed, relieved, and generally pretty normal. The only things that remind me what's happened is my scars, some abdominal pain and discomfort that I still get, and then obviously the fact that my bits don't really work, which is still quite sad, but I have to remain optimistic that one day they will. So that is my story. That's where I am. Firstly, I have to, of course, thank all of you guys, whether it be on YouTube, through Facebook, wherever it would be. You've all been really, really supportive. It's been quite surprising. I don't know any of you particularly. I never see your face. You always see my face. But reading your messages and reading your comments of reassurance and things like that has been absolutely wondrous. And I wear my heart on my sleeve, so I've taken everybody on the journey, even if it's been reluctantly or selfishly of me to pour my heart out, because it makes me feel a little bit better. Before I'm going to end the video in a moment, just quickly talking about symptoms or lack of symptoms and things to be aware of, certainly if you've got this far in the video and you want to know a bit more. But I'm going to take this opportunity to ask you for something. So I'm wearing this t-shirt. Prostate Cancer UK is a charity that I've been on the receiving end. I've never received anything from charity. I've never needed anything from anybody in my life. I've built everything that I've got through hard work and doing it myself. But I needed this charity. They were great for the mental state, so I could ring them up on my darkest of days with all the questions and doubts and worries. And there was always a urology nurse on the other end who could talk to you about your mental state, about the physics, physiology, I can't even say it. Any questions that you had, any concerns you had, they were always there for me. And I found that unbelievably reassuring. And believe you me, I rang them up a lot. I rang them up, I was in tears. I mean, that's the sort of shock that I had at the start of it. And these guys, they've heard it all before and they know what to say. So with that in mind, I've decided to support this charity as best I can. And I've been thinking about what to do. I can't do much, but I've decided to do a fun run. There's a fun run, a 5k fun run, which is local to us, that my daughter and my wife do every year. Everybody who takes part in the run dresses up as Santa Claus, and it's all for charity. But I spoke to the organiser and said, look, I want to run for my own charity. I want to raise some money and some awareness for Prostate Cancer UK. Can I do that? And I was told yes. Excuse me. So I have so far managed to raise £1,100, which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. It makes me feel so good to be able to give back to the charity who actually helped me. So if any of you have got any loose change, £1, $1, whatever it might be, I have a link down below. It's to a website called Just Giving. They organise everything for you. So basically, any donation you give, 100% of that will go to Prostate Cancer UK. If you live in the UK, you can do the gift aid, so the tax also is put aside, which means that you're actually donating a little bit more. I don't handle any of the money at all, so literally you can go on there. It's safe to use. I think you can donate worldwide, and anything you give, if you want to. I know times are hard for us all at the moment. I would be really, really appreciative of. I'm running the race next Sunday, December the 11th. I've actually been doing some practice, so I've done 4 or 5 training runs now. Now, I'm not a runner. I can't even run for the bus. But I think through this pure determination, I've managed to run 5k on my 3rd run ever. Okay, my legs were killing and I could hardly breathe and my heart was coming out my chest. But I've done it. So next week is going to be the big one, because I'm going to have to dress up as Santa Claus. It's going to be cold, but I'm going to be really hot. But I'm going to do it, and that's the main thing. So if you want to support me, then please hit the link down below. It would mean the world to me, and thank you very much. Okay, to end the video, I want to just make awareness of what to look out for, or what to do to look after yourselves, chaps. So look, as I said, I was 49 at my diagnosis, and I had absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. Nothing at all. If I hadn't have heard those guys on the radio, I would be sitting, well, I'd be sitting here now filming that watch. I wouldn't be talking to you about prostate cancer. I'd have no awareness at all. That's quite profound in itself, isn't it? Let's face it. So that's why it's called the silent killer. There are symptoms, and for some chaps, or a lot of chaps, they have the symptoms, and that's what takes them to the doctors. So certain symptoms are going to the toilet a lot more during the night. So if you're one of those guys, you're getting up 3 times a night or something to go to the toilet, then do yourself a favour, take yourself to the doctors. If you are finding it difficult to urinate, so if you go to the toilet, it comes out really slowly, or you've got to wait ages for it to come out, go to the doctors. Could be nothing, but it could be something. More dramatic things, blood in your semen. I know I never thought I'd be talking about this on my channel, but go to the doctors. It's another symptom. But equally, of course, there are no symptoms. You have to think about the prostate and what it is. You know, it's this organ surrounding your urethra. And if that gets big through a tumour or an infection, so you get a thing called prostatitis, which makes, I believe it makes your prostate swell up. Your prostate naturally, as you get older, gets bigger. All of these things, excuse me, all of these things can restrict your urethra. And most things, you could be okay. But if some of you are out there now listening to this and it's going in, go and have a PSA test. Persuade your doctor to do it. If you're in the UK, I think if you're over 50, I think you have a right to have it. They may question you, but you can use me as an example. You know, I haven't got any symptoms. If my GP had said no, nothing to worry about, again, I've been none the wiser. I think you've really got to push for these sort of things. A PSA test alone, like I say, is not foolproof, but it's the only thing we've got. And for every guy that I know now who have had prostate cancer, it all started with a PSA test. Granted, they may have had some symptoms that their wives made them go to the doctors for, but ultimately, the first thing they do is a PSA test. And look, I'm now in the curative state, yet I still have to go for a PSA test every 3 months. So clearly it is a means to an end. By going and having a test and having a good test where your level is normal, fantastic. It's on your records. And if it's on your records, then as long as you then continue to have that test, have it, I don't know, once a year if you're in your 70s perhaps, you know, if you're a bit younger, maybe once every 2 years. If you keep having that test, you keep having a benchmark line. So if it stays the same all the time, great. If it moves up, well, you know it's moved up, but so does the healthcare people who are looking after you. And that rise in your PSA usually would indicate that investigation is needed. And again, if you're catching it early, I mean, for this disease, you know, I joined a Facebook group and they were really, really helpful. I'm still in there now and I'm trying to help other guys because unfortunately there's traffic coming in every single day of new guys with new diagnosis. And in there you meet everybody. So unfortunately you meet the I don't know if you could call it terminal, but you know, the stage 4 guys right down to the people who have just been diagnosed, or people like myself. So for some, you can have prostate cancer all your life. It can rattle around in your prostate. It could be Gleason 6, really slow growing, and you just get monitored. The doctors will monitor you, and then if it ever escalates, then they would do something about it. So I just implore all of you, you know, we're all men who are into this. There are a few ladies that do watches, granted, but the majority of my audience on YouTube is like 99.9% men. Statistically, there's not so many people in the age groups of 25 to 30. You're all in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So you're all in the target area for this disease. And, you know, I'm here to tell the tale, and I want you all to be here to watch my videos, because that's really, really important. But no, you know, what I've learned is to take charge of your health. And no one else is going to do it for you. Your doctor's not going to ring you up and say, you know what, I've not seen you for 2 years. You better come in. Certainly in the UK, at least, that doesn't happen. You know, it's up to you to do something about it. And us men, we don't. We wait. We wait for something to happen. In many respects in the UK, the NHS also wait for something to happen. We're not proactive about trying to catch things before it happens. And that's quite sad. I mean, I'll give you an incident. I've got an older brother, and he went for his PSA test. Granted, he was great because his test was fine, but his doctor sort of commented that he hadn't seen him in absolute years, and he had got no record of any blood tests ever being done to compare one blood test from another. And that was his answer as well. I've never been ill. I don't go to the doctors. So look, you know, do it. Do it for yourselves. Do it for your family. Not just for prostate cancer. Have a proper blood test every year. Perhaps these MOTs, as we call them in the UK. So, you know, they check everything. Your liver function, your kidney function. Always be ahead of the game and catch something early. That can be the only lesson I can give you. So that's it. I know this video is probably going to be a lot longer than I thought. I hope some of you watch it all the way to the end and take my message on board. I somehow feel like I've been a bit of a stuck parrot because I keep mentioning it all the time, either in videos or again on Facebook. You know, it's been my new best subject. I've learned everything there is to know. Well, not everything there is to know, but you know, I've learned a lot about prostate cancer, as much as I've learned a lot about watches. But ironically, it's the watches have also got me through, because as soon as I could sit back on this bench, I started, I think, with the Seiko bullhead video. I think it was my first return to the bench. And doing this hobby is fantastic because it takes your mind off absolutely everything. I can't think of something else if I'm working on a watch, because if I do, I'll make a mistake. And we all know what mistakes happen in watches. A spring will go flying, a screw you'll lose, and it all ends in tears. So it's great for the mind is repairing watches, because you're not allowed to think about anything else. So I may do another update in a few months. We'll see how we go. I mean, you can see I'm happy, I'm smiling, I'm not so stressed as I used to be. I'm trying to make loads and loads of new content for you. yeah, everything's really good right now, and I hope it's going to stay that way. Perhaps I'll put a post up when I've had the next PSA readings if anyone's really interested. But there you go. That's been my journey with prostate cancer. I'm living to tell the tale. I've got some side effects, but I'm still here, and I caught it early, and that's the only plus thing. And again, no symptoms, 49. So have that as your message, guys. Do it for yourselves now. I don't want to keep saying it, so leave comments below. I'll read every one of them. I'll try and reply to as many as I can. If you've got any questions, then again, leave them down below. There's going to be links to my Just Giving page. I'll leave links to Prostate Cancer UK as well. If you have any concerns, of course, you can always contact those or read their information on their website as well. It's all very helpful. And that's it. Back, I promise, with the watches next. So I'll see you very soon in the next video. Bye for now.